Hey Access, Eric here. So we are continuing our study of spiritual disciplines, and this week we are looking at stewardship and serving. I'll be focusing on stewardship, and we'll be looking in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 in a little bit. But first I wanted to start off with a definition of stewardship. So according to Merriam-Webster, stewardship is the careful and responsible management of something entrusted to one's care. So a couple of questions that are raised from this definition with a biblical focus. So what does careful and responsible look like for us? And also, what all is entrusted to our care? So a lot of times when we think of stewardship, we think of it in terms of our money and that we need to be good stewards of our money and give a small portion back to God. But I want to expand our view of stewardship and just think of all the things that God entrusts to our care. You know, our money for sure, but also our time on this earth, our opportunities, our skills and talents, our children. You know, there's so many ways that God blesses us, and we should be thinking of these things as 100% belonging to God and not just a small portion. So from 2 Corinthians chapter 9, I'm going to start in verse 6. It reads as this: "Remember this, whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and whoever sows generously will also reap generously. Each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able to bless you abundantly, so that in all things at all times, having all that you need, you will abound in every good work." So what I like about these verses is it really gets to the heart of giving. You know, we shouldn't be giving out of guilt, but rather with a generous heart. And like this passage says, we will reap generously when we sow generously. And you know, what we have to sow looks different for every person, because we've all been blessed in different ways. You know, some of us are financially better off. Some people are in a stage of life where they have more free time. You know, and we all have different talents to share with others. But the goal should be that wherever we are, you know, that we are good stewards and give of our resources with a cheerful heart, and not out of compulsion or guilt. So the theme I kept coming back to when I was preparing this lesson is living with purpose. You know, we should be striving to live purposefully in all aspects of our lives. Being a good steward of what we have means being intentional. So practically, what does this actually look like? I wanted to leave you with a few practical ideas to think about. So starting off with our finances, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have heard this before, but a great way to manage your finances with purpose is with a household budget. And a budget does a couple things. First off, it designates a place for every dollar. You know, it gives every dollar a purpose. And not only will the necessary expenses have a purpose, but also other items like entertainment and restaurants and other fun things. And by planning for those other expenses, you don't have to feel guilty because they've already been planned for in your budget. The other thing a budget does is it allows you to see where every dollar is going when you track your expenses. So that really brings your finances into the light, and you can see where you can trim easily. And with the money that you've trimmed in your budget, that can allow you to be more generous. You know, and with our time, I was thinking it's a similar situation. You know, I know so many of us are in that stage of life where we don't have a lot of free time. And it's easy to feel guilty when we take time to ourselves. You know, I know I do this all the time. If things are hectic around the house and I just want to get off by myself a little bit or zone out on my phone, I can never really rest because I'm always feeling guilty about that. But I've been thinking I really need to change my mindset on this and think about myself as being a good steward of my time and using my time wisely. And so that way I can, when I'm with my family, I'm present and I'm not zoning out. But I also make time for rest and recovery, and that'll, by doing that, it'll help me to better serve my family and do the things that God has called me to do. And lastly, what about stewardship of all the other things in our lives? Like our skills, our talents, our resources. So does giving 100% back to God mean that we can never own a nice car or house? Of course not. But I think it would be a great thing for us to get to the point where we're living purposefully in all aspects of our lives. So if you have a certain talent, find a way to use it for God's glory. If you have a nice house, find a way to use it for God's purposes. One thing I've loved about the people in Access is how willing you guys all are to open your homes for things like Super Bowl parties, or Christmas parties, or guys' nights out, or ladies' nights out. And I think it's a great way to use the home that you have for God's purposes. Okay, so that's all I had. I just encourage you this week to read through the rest of 2 Corinthians chapter 9. There's a lot of great stuff in it, and just be thinking of ways that we can use all of our resources with purpose, and so that we can give of them more generously. Okay, thanks guys. Bye.